I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking about my story with infertility. So as you may know, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure and I had both my kids with donor eggs. Years later, I discovered there were some underlying stressors in my body that were contributing to my infertility. But for me, I discovered it when I was 40. It was too late for me. So if you're still cycling naturally, there's things we can do to help optimize your preconception health and help prepare your body for a baby. So this episode is for you, especially if you have low AMH, high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian failure, premature ovarian insufficiency. If that is your diagnosis, this episode is for you to listen to my story. And hopefully in the story, you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. There's some different things that I'm talking about that you may be experiencing as well. And those are clues for us to dig deeper. So once I discovered the functional approach, I could not look back. And really I'm talking about if you've just been diagnosed, I'm going to talk about where the best place for you to start is. If you have one failed IUI or one failed IVF, where to start. If you have multiple IUIs, failed IUIs or failed IVFs, where to start. So grab your partner with this episode and let's dig into the functional approach to looking at POF and low AMH and diminished ovarian reserve, and hope you enjoy. Hey there, Sarah Clark here. So are you struggling to have your baby? First of all, please know that my heart goes out to you. I support couples worldwide who are struggling with infertility to conceive and have healthy babies. Women like Rita, who gave birth to her beautiful daughter after following my fertility coaching system. Or Danielle, who after 2 failed IUIs was able to get pregnant after a Supercharge your fertility discovery call with me. So here's how you get my help for free. So I offer a free Supercharge your fertility discovery call. And on that call, I'll create a plan with you that is going to help you fast track your success. So this call is not for everyone. And I'm really picky about who I get to speak with. And I have a strict but totally reasonable criteria that needs to be met in order for us to move forward. So here's who I can help. So first of all, you need to be able to explore your infertility diagnosis in a new light. So this offers for people who are open-minded, they're coachable, and if you can do that and want to double or triple your chances at the fertility clinic or get pregnant, awesome. So let's get on the phone and chat. Also, you must be an action taker. So someone who's committed to seeing results, you're able to follow directions. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do anything bizarre. But if you're one of those people who like to consume a ton of information, but don't like to spend time implementing and seeing results, then the call's not really for you. So I only want to spend time with people who are genuinely committed to their own success. So just click on the link in the show notes and apply, or go to FabFertile, FABfertile.com, and click on the free consult. So it's a really short application that just tells me about your health, how long you've been trying to conceive, and how soon you'd like to be pregnant. So seriously, this is going to be the best time you've ever spent on your fertility. Looking forward to chatting. Talk soon. All the stuff they're talking about, the toxins in the water and the food, I'm like, what do you think's going on right now? It's affecting both male and female fertility, our standard Western diet, and going to the clinic is a Band-Aid approach. And it's a damn expensive Band-Aid. Why don't we look at the root cause of what's going on here? Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, and my mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. Most of all, I want you to wake up. So with functional medicine, we can discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm welcoming myself to the podcast, and we're going to dig into my story with premature ovarian failure, high FSH, and how I discovered functional medicine. So when I was 28 years old, I received the diagnosis of premature ovarian failure, otherwise known now as premature ovarian insufficiency, and I accepted that diagnosis, did not get a second opinion, and I had both my children through IVF with donor eggs. Years later, I discovered the root cause of my infertility was a food sensitivity and later on a gut infection. I'm a certified life coach with accreditation from the International Coaches Federation and a health coach with training from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I'm also an author of Fabulously Fertile, Supercharge Your Fertility Naturally. That book is available on Amazon, and my signature couples coaching program where we do functional lab testing. We support couples to make diet and lifestyle changes that dramatically improve the chances of a healthy pregnancy and baby. So I'm the founder of Fab Fertile. So definitely check out my website at FabFertile, FABfertile.com. And also I am the host of this podcast, Get Pregnant Naturally. And I'm excited to interview awesome guests and really talk about how functional medicine can help us reverse infertility. So today we are digging into my story and excited for you to listen. Feel free to leave a review on iTunes. So today we're going to mix things up and I am going to be interviewed. And my lovely friend, Monica Cox, who has been on the podcast a couple times, actually, definitely check out her episode where we talk about the autoimmune protocol diet, which she goes into super detail about that. So check out that episode. And also we talked about journaling, which is one of her passions as well. Hey, Monica, excited to have you on the podcast again.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for the honor of me getting to interview you.
Yeah, so I wanted to dig in today and have people hear my story. I've shared it a lot all over the place, but I thought, okay, let's share it here on the podcast. And you've probably heard me talk about my experience with donor eggs, but I wanted to dig in a little bit more so you can learn more about my journey and really why I started the podcast and I'm passionate about what I do.
Yeah, exactly. I love your podcast. Even though I don't need to get pregnant naturally anymore, I still listen to it because it's just so informational. And I tell you what, if I had this podcast when I was going through my journey, it probably would have been 4 years, not 9 years.
Oh, thanks. That's very nice.
Obviously, you have your own personal infertility journey story. How did that lead you to now do the work you're doing now?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of back up and share the story here because it is a little bit of a long one, but I'll condense it. I always joked in my early 20s that I was having menopausal hot flashes. And I remember being in HR at the time, doing recruitment, interviewing people, and just joking, haha, menopausal hot flash. And well, it turns out that it was. So at the time, I had these irregular periods, and by regular, it was coming twice a year. But I thought back then, that was a good thing. So I thought, I didn't get my period. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. This is a good thing. Obviously, it wasn't. Then I had this weird fungal rash on my chest. And then I had yeast infections. And all of a sudden, in my early 20s, I started getting acne. I remember having this super greasy chin with it's not tons of acne, but enough acne on my chin that in my teens, I had great skin. And all of a sudden, this greasy chin. I had this life plan that I was going to get married at 25. So I got married at 25 and I've been married to my husband for almost 23 years. So he is my best friend and he is the man. He listens to me babble on about whatever I want to babble on about. So he's amazing. But yeah, I was married at 25 and then wanted to have my kids at 28. And so in between there, because I had you had the irregular periods and the acne, went to the doctor. First line of defense was go on the birth control pill. One on the birth control pill, obviously the cycle is regulated, but that was a false regulation. And then also the acne never really cleared up. It went a little bit, but didn't really diminish. And so then at the age of 28, because I'm this planner, wanted to have my kids at 28. So went off the pill and the cycles were still irregular. And then so I went to my OBGYN, remember sitting in her office and told that I had premature ovarian failure, which is the loss of function of the ovaries before the age of 40. I remember her reaching up on her shelf, grabbing the IVF brochure and saying, Sarah, it's donor eggs for you. And I remember I was just shocked. I didn't really know what to say. It was it was not what I was expecting at the age of 28 to be told that, you can't have your own biological children. And then I didn't connect any of those other health issues I was talking about. So then I left there, and because I'm a person of action, I went straight to the fertility clinic. And it's so weird because I did not get a second opinion. I didn't think about the other, I think the other health issues, I wouldn't have thought those are connected. The first part is I didn't get a second opinion on this. I went, okay, premature ovarian failure, I better go and get on the list for a donor egg. And I did that. And back then it was when in Canada where they were doing, so the donor was going through male factor infertility. And so she shared half her eggs with me. We were lucky enough, this is back when the donor profile came in the mail. It came in the freaking mailbox, and I'm out there stalking the mail delivery person, and the profile came, and one of the main categories I was focused on was height, because I'm 6 foot and I wanted to have a somewhat tall donor. Obviously the donor was there, no one could be that tall, but they were taller. And obviously I looked at education and, medical things like that, but I was focused on height because that's my thing. And then we were lucky enough on the first fresh transfer for it to work. And my daughter, Ava, has just left me and gone off to university all the way across the country. So yeah, this is 18 years ago when you say donor eggs and people are like, I don't even know what it is you're saying. So now, and I interviewed on the podcast Nancy Weiss, and she talked about her journey with embryo adoption or embryo donation. So these little embryos that are from all the IVF procedures are left over. And she happened to adopt one, and the natural siblings to hers are 13 years old, and her little daughters too. So, and in there, I did ask a couple friends if they wanted to donate their eggs, and they didn't feel comfortable doing that. And I remember I had to ask my husband, I'm like, how did I feel about that? She's like, you were kind of pissed. You were kind of pissed that that they didn't want to help you. But looking back, like obviously it worked out the way it was meant to be. And I think I prefer an anonymous one. That's sort of, I think that was better. I know it was better. And then, so we wanted to have our kids close together. We had 2 more embryos left over, and went back in there. And I was just sort of bound and determined to have the kids close together. And I was on a bit of a mission. And my husband's like, Sarah, slow down. You seem stressed. I'm like, no, go back in. And those didn't work. And then went back on another list for a separate donor. Again, the height thing. So made sure that the person was somewhat tall, and obviously the health and all of that. And then we're lucky enough on the first fresh transfer to have our son. And so he's 15. So fast forward, after I had my daughter, my health just took a nosedive. I remember having like 9 colds in 1 year. Every cold went to a sinus infection. I thought it was a great idea to take antibiotics for every sinus infection. Not a great idea. Completely destroyed my gut health. And then I started getting chronic bladder infections, was peeing blood, became allergic to all the antibiotics. I had the yeast infections became chronic. I had vertigo, I had dandruff, I had toenail infections, chronic colds. But really, I was still in HR at the time, still doing my thing, but my immune system was compromised. And so at the time I was still in HR. So I wanted to take a life coaching course, took this life coaching course. And that's where I had my own personal wake up call and decided I wanted to go on to take a health coaching course. And I took the health coaching course. And that's when I discovered I had the food sensitivities. So for me at the time, so I was 40, fully in menopause at that point. So it was too late for me. But really for me, I discovered I was sensitive to dairy, gluten, and then later corn. And then I later found out I also had a gut infection where I had H. pylori, and I had streptococcus, and I had fungal overgrowth. And then I really became passionate about sharing with people of how they can use functional medicine to really heal themselves. And I went off to do a book. And in the book writing course, I was going to write about weight loss, which is something I'd never really struggled with. I'm like, Sarah, you've struggled with infertility. Like I just kind of, because I'm sort of a matter of fact kind of person. And I looked at this and was like, okay, these are the steps. I actually felt people that were going through IUI and IVF had it worse than me. Whereas when you talk to most people, donor eggs would be probably the absolute, end of the line kind of thing. I felt I had my solution, and here it was, and that's where I went. That's just how I viewed it. And I speak with a lot of people that are opting for donor eggs, and that's not how they view it at all. So it can be like very devastating, wondering if they'll bond with the baby and how will it feel to carry another person's eggs. And I had those worries as well, but didn't have any of those issues when my kids were born. I knew they were mine. And, each kid has separately kind of one wanted to look at the health history, others of the donor, the other one hasn't. So yeah, really starting this whole side with it, looking at it from a functional approach, that all those different health issues I had going on, those were clues that something was going on with my fertility. But I didn't discover it till it was too late for me. And now we help couples that are dealing with unexplained infertility, low AMH, high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, PCOS typically. And so we typically work with female factor infertility and looking at both the male and the female. But yeah, there's the journey where it never really, it wasn't a straight line for sure. And it's kind of like, I never thought in a million freaking years on my plan of Sarah's career plan, was she ever going to be a fertility coach? That was never, because I'm a planner, and I just did not see it. And those are the ones where you're like, oh, there you finally find your passion and fulfilled being able to help people. Because once you discover this approach, as Monica, as you well know, it's like you can't look back and you're like, damn, why doesn't everybody know about it?
Yeah, it is totally the matrix, one pill or the other. And if you take the wrong pill or the right pill, whichever way you look at it, you just can't go back. Why do you think fertility? Because you obviously said you didn't really discover this stuff until you already had your kids, your path was done, you were moving on. Some people maybe wanted to help, menopausal people, or, we all kind of choose our path. I mean, even though you have an infertility story, what was drawing you back?
I think it's the fact that, for me, I discovered it was too late. All these different, seemingly unrelated health issues to my fertility, and to having people be able to connect the dots that, oh, wait, there's things we can do. Like there's things I didn't need to go to donor eggs. Obviously, I don't regret it. I have beautiful children, but I could have done things differently, restored. I was still cycling back in my 20s. I could have looked at my health, the environmental toxins, the stress I was under, obviously a food sensitivity. I remember looking in the mirror at when I was 12 and seeing dark circles in my eyes, and which is an indicator of food sensitivity, these things that I potentially had all my life. And it was just that tipping point that for me and the people I work with, it impacts their fertility. So I wanted to help someone like me and say, shit, you don't need to you don't need to take forever to figure this out. Like I took 10 years to deal with all these health issues. And although I was not a sick person, people coming to me, it's not a sick population. There's things we can do. And yeah, I guess I just really wanted to help someone like me not have to struggle like I did.
100%. Yeah. That's what drives you, isn't it? It's just your journey kind of defined you. And I think we've let our journeys define us in a very positive way, even though many people will probably look at it and go, gosh, that's really hard to get through. And it's just like, we want to take everything that we've been through and help someone, get through it a little bit easier than we did.
Yes. Cause Monica's journey was 9 years, and she definitely go back and check out her episode there with the AIP. And yeah, she goes through that, but 9 years of struggling and trying to figure it out.
But during our time, we didn't have us, right? There was no one out there talking about linking all these normal health issues to infertility. So we didn't know, we just did the best that we could. And, I guess for me, luckily I was a little bit younger than you. So I was just happened to be going through it during a time where people were actually talking about functional medicine. So I started linking, I felt at the time grasping at straws because no one was talking about infertility per se, but I was like, oh, well, I have that and I have that. Well, maybe that. So I was just lucky it was the right time for me, where for you 10, 15 years earlier, there was probably nothing really.
No.
So what did you wish you knew during your trying to conceive years then?
To me, I wish I knew that there was all these seemingly unrelated health issues that I was, so with the sinus issues and the colds, I was attacking the sinus issue. I didn't think any of this was related to my fertility or the rest of my body, or to a food sensitivity or a gut infection. These bladder infections, the toenail, all these different things. I was treating each individual symptom and not realizing it's affecting the whole. And not until I, took out those stressors out of my body. And it's just not about the diet piece. It's obviously the gut health too, but really looking at the mental emotional side of things, like looking at your lifestyle, where you keep saying, because I'm a pretty excited person, I like doing a lot of stuff, and I just kept saying yes to everything because I was having fun. That the body sometimes can't do all that, and it's okay to say no and dig into. So I really wish I'd known about functional medicine and really those different stressors. So so you said, the food sensitivity, the gut infection, the environmental toxins. So I grew up in this house. It was a cedar house in the forest. It was regularly infestated. I had infestations with carpenter ants, so we was always getting sprayed. My dog died of cancer at 10. I have infertility. My brother has blood cancer. Was the fact that I inhaled all these toxins through my, my childhood? I don't know. Maybe I have the MTHFR gene. My ability to methylate. Maybe that was impaired. Well, obviously it was impaired. So, being exposed to these environmental toxins, my thyroid went off. So I have thyroid dysfunction. I was put on the birth control pill. So all these different things that are seemingly unrelated, but all connected when you look at it through a functional approach and looking at that root cause. So yeah, I wish I'd known about the functional approach, that we can really do things. And I think that's really empowering to be able to know that people come to me saying, oh, I've done all the things. But if you have not dug into the functional approach, like the functional nutrition, looking at your gut health, not just taking a stool test with your with your conventional doctor, not just going dairy light or gluten light. If you have not, you've got to dig into this. And you can notice, like, really quickly, you can notice some huge improvement, but there's got to be some commitment, and, doing it with your partner is key. Because in the beginning, just coaching women and was missing the whole connection with the partner. So if there's a real thing going on in the relationship, if there's stress going on there, it's a whole piece that's been missed. And to also, even every time the partner like puts his hand up and says his sperm is fine, that's not the case. We actually see infections being passed back and forth between each other, whether it's H. pylori infections are being passed back and forth between couples. And then really, there's always things to optimize his preconception health, even if his sperm quality is great.
Yeah. Is that what you think people get wrong the most during their fertility journey? Is that they kind of do this little light layer of fixing fertility?
Yeah. So I think, like, with the piece, some pieces they get wrong. So the diet piece, I don't think they dig enough into it to really start with the elimination diet. And it's not about taking these foods out forever, because then you could be super restrictive, and you could be just talking to someone else on a podcast talking like you could be down to 6 foods, and then, you're dealing with a whole other issue. But it's like doing the elimination diet. And there's a podcast episode where we talk about exactly how to do that. And so it's really taking out those top allergens and then systematically reintroducing them and see if there is a food sensitivity, that is the gold standard. And I think people miss that piece. They're like, oh, I didn't feel any issues, but it's not just digestion, the gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. It's the mood side of things, which I had irritability, ADHD, depression, anxiety. So I had the irritability side of things. It's the, and also brain fog, and that could also be it. And then also, skin issues. So I had the acne piece, but the psoriasis or the eczema, the skin rashes, hives, and then also joints. So I get that with the joints kind of will flare up, and joint pain, stiffness, and then autoimmune issue. I think a lot of those times people are just like, I don't have a food sensitivity. My digestion is great. Oh, what? Wait, did you look at the mood, the joint, what was the other one? Skin. And I think that's missed. So that part to dig into. And also, we're in the middle of this huge food experiment, where a lot of our food is sprayed with glyphosate, which is a herbicide linked to infertility and a whole bunch of other. I know, exactly. If the guy's out there wearing a white Tyvek suit spraying our friggin' food, why do we think it's okay to eat it? It's linked to infertility and a whole host of other diseases. So please go organic, or if that's just too cost prohibitive for you, look at the Dirty Dozen and make sure those foods are at least organic.
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring up the food part of it and the sensitivities, and not linking these sensitivities. And I was just writing out this list because I'm really trying to get people to look at what they can eat. People think they go onto these, AIP diets or paleo or do the elimination diet, and they just can't eat anything. And I'm like, God, no, there's actually a lot of food out there that you can eat. So I'm writing these lists of what you can. And then I'm like, okay, this is what you can't. And I have this client that only has a few like heavy sensitivities. She's got a few moderate ones, but it's just like, oh yeah, and you can't eat anything from a box or, a can or whatever, or like fast food or convenient food. And I was thinking, I was like, well, that's probably 95% of what people actually eat. So that's why they think they can't eat anything, right? Or it's so restrictive. It's actually not. There's loads to eat, but it's just not convenient, or you have to make it yourself, or you have to go to the grocery store and really plan it out.
Yeah, I coach a lot of people on making sure they get their groceries in. And this is something that, I make sure I shop every week. Do I love grocery shopping? Not really. But I make sure that I know when there's food in the house, I will cook it. If there's not, I potentially could go out. And I know when I go out, and I love going to restaurants. I'm a foodie. I love food. But I would make sure that I adhere to because I still do gluten, dairy, corn, so make sure I adhere to my restrictions. But yeah, I like to dig into that home cooking piece. And if you're resistant to it, then, I think it's to dig into like, why have we outsourced our cooking to the food industry? Mm-hmm. Why is it we want to eat shit out of a box? Like I, for years, was eating plates of brown food. It was like boring. And I kept thinking, because my mom, like during when I was growing up, we were vegetarian. I left the house. They've been vegan for over 30 years. I was like, what are you doing? And my parents were super healthy, and while their friends are getting hip replacements and falling apart. Not to say you need to go plant-based. I don't necessarily advocate that, but it's more to eat food that's not processed. And I ate Campbell's soup out of a can. Like I ate all this junk out of a box. And I'm like, no wonder my health took a nosedive. So yeah, like the diet piece is like to really deal into that. And then I think also they get wrong about not including the partner. Like it takes two to have a baby. Like why are we just, even if it's female factor infertility and it's women that reach out to me, all like 100% women, but like the partner, it's sperm and egg coming together. So let's take at least 6 months to optimize the preconception health for you and your partner. So that's, I think, is a missing link of not bringing in the partner, because a lot of times, and men and women will handle infertility differently. You may even think that your partner is not, sympathetic or whatever he is, or maybe he's very supportive. He may not even know how to say, like, he's equally in pain as much as you are. He just may not be able to verbalize it because maybe he thinks he has to be strong for you. So like that piece of coaching couples, as you say, passing the infections back and forth. And then we keep seeing this a lot lately, more and more, is like especially if you've been through multiple IUIs or IVFs, like the burnout and the overwhelm and like the heartache associated with that can then impact your sex hormones, your cortisol levels. So we see a lot of people in like, they're burnt out, and they just need to, like, if I'm going to say, hey, we're going to change all your diet, do all this stuff, they just need actually support to help them through this. It's, infertility is likened to a cancer diagnosis. So having a supportive team to help you know that what you're feeling is completely freaking normal, like to have these thoughts and to just really show yourself some kindness and take a step back and look at self-care. So I think I've seen people doing like 6, 7, same as you, like 6, 7, 8 IVFs, like keep going. And I'm like all these hormones and injections and the stress of it and the financial cost, it's to take a pause and to say, wait a minute, like it's time to mother yourself before we expand our family or we have a baby. So I see that a lot too, the burnout.
They're probably coming to us and doing the functional medicine kind of nutrition approach because they probably don't believe in it, let's say, use that term. And what's your advice about them not believing in it?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people, if they feel some people could come to me and they're still thinking, like I've done a podcast on why we think IVF is the last choice, because to me it's to focus on your preconception health. Either you get pregnant naturally, or if you do go to the clinic, you're going to increase your successes of this actually working, because it takes an average of 3 cycles at a cost of $60,000 for an average IVF to work. And so I think some people are like, they've already tried everything. They've made the diet changes. They've done a lot of people I think have done a lot of the emotional side of things. Like there's a lot of people working on mindset, but we look at all the stressors. And so I think with the functional side of things, sometimes I don't think not as many people have heard about it. So functional medicine, it's like root cause medicine, and typically it's MDs that are going to this way of treating and really digging to the root cause and not treating symptoms. So if for someone is obviously a functional approach is still an investment, but it's like no near the cost of fertility treatments. And so to me, if you're going down that side of things, like people say to us that, looking at the functional approach, it's like life changing because it impacts all aspects of your life. So physically you're feeling better. And as I say, this is not a sick population. So they may not even be like, I don't feel sick, but it's not a sick population. But sometimes you don't know how poorly you feel until you feel freaking awesome. And then also, so the physical side of things, and then looking at the emotional side of it, like digging into if there's any traumas or where you keep pushing yourself, if you're working more than 50 hours a week, like digging into that side of it. And then also like having your partner on the same page as you, because this can either pull you apart or really draw you together. So I think if you haven't looked at a functional approach, and a lot of people have been to other different practitioners, maybe on like heaps of supplements. Our approach really is to educate you the whole way along the way, like doing the testing that we do. So we do the food sensitivity, we do the hormone, we do the Dutch, we do the GI map, which is a stool, we do the hair. So we do those 4 tests, and then we develop a protocol based on that. It's a targeted protocol. Then we're looking at your sleep hygiene and really kind of digging into mindset with both you and your partner. And so if you haven't done all of that, like, I think you're missing something. But if you're like saying, oh, typically if you're listening to this podcast, I'm hoping that you're into the functional approach, because that's what we talk about all the time. But if you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not feeling it, you know what? It won't work, because you have to believe this is the approach for you. This is the one that you're selecting. If you're nodding your head going, yes, this makes sense. I don't want to look at the symptoms. I want to look at the whole body. Then yeah, like, give me a call. But like, if you're kind of like, oh, I don't think it'll work, you're probably right, because then you won't put in the time and effort that's required, because like it's you'll have a coach to support you.
It's hard.
But yeah, it is hard, right? It's like, oh my God.
And if you're sat there saying, no, it's not going to work, no, this isn't for me, you're telling yourself, you're talking yourself out of it, and you just won't do it, will you? You won't do it. I would say 90 to 120% that you need to do it. Why do you think testing is so important?
Yeah, I just think it really gives us a foundation, and it's not, so testing is not the be all and end all, because people will say to me, oh, I just want to do the test, but the test is the foundation. So we work with a lot of doctors, nurses, like lawyers and accountants, people in the left brain kind of thing, or they like the testing because it's based in science. And then you can actually get a starting point, and you know where to begin. And so, whereas other times it's like throwing a dart at a dartboard, and in the dark, you don't even know where you're going. Like if you have a gut infection and you're like, I'm just going to cleanse the gut and not work on eradicating whatever's in there, then that could be stopping you from getting pregnant. If you have like blasto, or if you have like a parasite in there, or H. pylori, that could be the reason why it's not working. It's a gut infection. Your body wants to survive, not procreate. Maybe in the hormone side of things, maybe, we've had people that have had low AMH or premature ovarian failure, and their estrogen is actually fine. There's other things going on. Their cortisol is off. There's other, their progesterone is off. So it's to really look to use the testing as the starting point to build the protocol. And then then the rubber hits the road where you need to make these changes. Then you'll see kind of like, oh, wait, what's coming up for me? Oh, am I the kind of person it's like, here's the plan and I do it? Because those are the ones that get the most success. Or you're like, oh, and you second guess it and you're not sure, and then you deviate, and then guess what? It doesn't work. So it is to, like, if you're going to invest the time in the money in the test, then it's to be able to do the outcome of what the suggestions are. And that's why having a team to support you is key. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, the test can just show you things that you never knew that were there. Mm-hmm. They kind of give you, coming from, either if you're a doctor or coach, just being able to look at someone isn't always useful. So it's finding those hidden factors. And like you say, the test isn't the end all and be all. I think sometimes testing, we get hung up on the diagnosis, right? So that's why I'm always kind of like, okay, we're going to test, especially food sensitivity tests, because people come back and go, well, I'm only borderline allergic to corn, so I'm still going to eat it. I'm like, no. You need to eliminate that stuff because it will add up, right? Just because you're a little reactive to it doesn't mean it's not important to get rid of it now. Now, later down the line, when you're healed, you can look into reintroducing these things. Yeah. And especially with the infections, man, those are big. Like for you, the candida, you just did not know that was probably having a huge impact on your health for, quite a long time.
Yeah. And like the fungal candida side of things, it's opportunistic. And so I was like attacking the candida head on, but then I also had H. pylori and streptococcus. So it's like to deal with those first. So there's like a protocol on how to work with that. And I come out of practitioners' offices with bags of supplements, I didn't know why I was taking them, and I didn't really know what they were for. And they did, I spent a lot of money and they didn't work. So this is a very, you'll get review of the testing, you'll know what it's for, and then you'll be able to, and when you're getting the supplements, it's for a short period of time. It's a targeted period of time. It's not forever. Obviously, if you take like supplements like a prenatal or an omega or magnesium, you want to take those long term. But if we're eradicating a parasite, we don't eradicate a parasite for 5 years. We eradicate it for typically 3 months, depending on what it is. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think many people who listen to your podcast probably know how you feel about the fertility industry. But give us your little insights to, where this, even our community, I feel like I don't even feel like there's I mean, there is a divide. I feel like there's the, functional medicine and then the IVF clinics, and some merge, it weaves. But as an industry and as a community as a whole, how do you feel it's going?
Yeah, like I feel that people will go to their OBGYN and been told that they're either trying, over 6 months or a year, depending on their age. And then the first step is to go to the RE and go to the fertility clinic. And no one's stopping to check all those different issues that we're seeing. Like we see regular people being on birth control. We see people that impact your nutrient levels and predisposes you to those food sensitivities, gut infections. We see, thyroid dysregulation. We see low vitamin D levels. We see, it's a marker of your immune system. We see that like the gut infections, they wouldn't even figure out until later. But we see people with autoimmune, people come to me and say, oh, I have infertility. And oh, by the way, I have an autoimmune disease. Not like it doesn't matter. Like, that is key. And this is your specialty too. And it's sort of to be able to, wait a minute, there's things we can do if you have an autoimmune disease to optimize your body for a baby. And going forward to IVF, this to me, it's kind of like, well, if the majority of us can get pregnant naturally, why are so many of us going to the clinic? Well, A, it's there, like the technology's there, so why wouldn't I use it? Or B, I'm in a hurry because it doesn't matter how old you are, 28, 38, you're past the point that, you want to expand your family. So like the fertility industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry that is growing by leaps and bounds. And although obviously I'm grateful for them because I had both my kids with the industry, with the fertility industry's help, and it wouldn't have happened if that wasn't there. But if there's other options that carry a way, way less price tag and can actually optimize, so working on your preconception health, then helps with your postpartum period, and then the health of your children. Like my postpartum period, I was an irritable pain in the ass, and I since heard about postpartum rage. I don't know if I necessarily had that, but I was irritable and very cranky. And then both my kids have food sensitivities, so I didn't figure any of this stuff out. So to me, like injecting yourself with all those hormones, paying all of that money, when it's just in 2008 alone, there was 330,000 IVF procedures done. What is going on? Like, it's almost, I watched that Handmaid's Tale and I'm like, that freaking show is just like horrifying to me. Cause like all the stuff they're talking about, the toxins in the water and the food, I'm like, what do you think's going on right now? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that is just like, it's affecting both male and female fertility, our standard Western diet, and going to the clinic is a Band-Aid approach. And it's a damn expensive Band-Aid. Why don't we look at the root cause of what's going on here? And it just sets us up for like a healthy generation of children. Like our kids are suffering with anxiety and, ADHD, that are on medication, like all these things that if we focus on our preconception health, we can potentially avoid. Yeah.
It's so crazy. Everything you just said, how we are looking at the community and the industry, it sounds awful, but I feel kind of grateful that everything else in the medical world is handled in the same way. Just not our issue, right? Not people who are dealing with infertility. We're being dealt with in a crazy random way. It's our whole society is just like mental. And like we said in the beginning, once you take that blue pill, you can't erase what you've seen, right? Like now everything's like super highlighted. And not only are you really into what you eat and your toxins in your home and your environment, but all of a sudden you're an eco warrior and you're like, oh, I'm the nutcase I didn't want to be. But you start seeing that it's really important. And for me, when I was learning about this, I was using IVF. I was using immune suppressing drugs on top of that. So that's like steroids and Clexane, which is a blood thinner, and these things called interlipids, which is just like a cocktail, which you should not be taking when you have an autoimmune issue. But I learned about epigenetics, and I learned that it matters. It matters even more so than your infertility issues, because when you do have that baby and therefore you are dealing with not only your own health issues, like you found after you had your babies, but your children's health issues for the rest of your life. And it's just so important. It's so much more than just getting pregnant. And I think that's when you're dealing with infertility, that's what you focus on, right? Yeah. You just want to be pregnant.
Yeah. And Dr. Ben Lynch talked about actually passing infertility on. to your children because you haven't dealt with it. So they get that gene, which is like horrifying. So yeah, it is to be able to.
And like you said in the beginning, it's taking that step back.
Yeah, taking a step back and to be able to take 3 steps forward. And it's like, let's dig into this and see why it's not working in the first place. And it's not taking the foot off the gas. You're still moving forward, but it's moving forward to not address the symptoms, to figure out why and affecting your future generations. So yeah, but again, it's got to feel right for you, right? If you are on the path of IVF and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, functional medicine, I don't think so. And you are going straight to IVF, like, then to me, work on your mindset and your mindfulness side of things. But if you're looking to, and it's not a pause, but it is, you got to take about 6 months to figure this out with your partner and dig into why it's not working, to, look at your future generations of kids or your children. I think it's just looking at the big picture. And that's what I like. I wish I'd known.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah. Because dealing with kids that have food sensitivities, it's not easy.
Yeah, definitely. So if someone wants to start and they want to change a little bit, where would you point them? What direction?
Yeah. So basically, if you're just diagnosed then with infertility, then we'd have you look at the elimination diet. So do the elimination diet, you and your partner do it together, take out those top allergens, listen to the podcast episode where we talk about how to do it in detail. And then after that, I'd say go dairy and gluten-free, both you and your partner, for 90 days. But if you're not pregnant after those 90 days, then we dig into the gut testing, looking at potential gut infections, and we can look at the mental emotional side of things, the environmental toxins. So the functional approach using some testing. If you've had one IUI or one IVF failed, then if you're feeling like in the next month you want to do the next one, the functional approach is not for you. If you're saying, look, I want to take 6 months and then do the IVF to really optimize my chances, so then I would look at the full approach. So looking at the elimination diet, the testing to really optimize your health, and then looking at the mental, emotional side of things, the environmental toxins, like digging into that. So taking the 6 months to figure this out. If the IVF is coming up in a month, this approach is not for you, because you cannot do the two of them simultaneously. You cannot, if we find a gut infection and we're trying to eradicate a parasite, you cannot be then taking hormones, preparing for IVF. It will not work. It's contraindicated. So you've got to be able to pick one or the other. If you have had multiple IUIs and IVFs that have failed, I really would, instead of going straight into the functional side of things, I really would go into the mindfulness side of it and mindset, because there's a lot of heartache and frustration and stress and emotional turmoil experiencing, and let alone financial cost, dealing with that. So really digging into the mindset side of these things and looking at self-care, really mothering yourself before you then can look at a functional approach or prepare for your next IVF. So that's where I go. Just diagnosed, I do the elimination diet, and then 90 days dairy and gluten-free. If it's one IUI and one failed IVF, then you can take the 6 month pause, but you've got to be able to say, this is where I want to go. And then if you had multiple, I would really look at mindset for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many little things you can be doing, and it's, there's not one right way for everyone, is there? And like you say, you got to start where you're ready to start. And then I think eventually you will either get pregnant, or you will keep going until you do get pregnant.
That's right.
What's your favorite quote at the moment?
Yeah, I like the quote from Maya Angelou. So do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, you do better. I just think it really applies to everything in functional medicine. Like, I was doing the best I could, didn't know any better. And then I discovered this, and I cannot fucking look back. Like, you cannot look back. You can't unsee it. And it's like the Matrix side of things. Yeah. So I love that quote. And the other quote I like, I'm not sure who this quote is from, and I keep quoting it, but I couldn't find who it was from. I thought it was Dr. Mark Hyman, but I'm not sure. So I like to say that your body will whisper to you when you ignore the signals, or it'll start shouting at you, usually in the form of disease. So body's whispering every day. And, for me, it was doing all these different things, and I just ignored it. And then it showed up in infertility. So yeah, those are my two favorite quotes.
No, they're awesome quotes. And it's funny because I don't think a lot of people, and I know I didn't look at my infertility that my body was shouting to me, right? That's crazy. Your favorite book at the moment?
So I'm a huge hugely obsessed with all kinds of books. My favorite book is A Mind of Your Own. So Mind of Your Own by Dr. Kelly Brogan. So she studied at MIT and Cornell. She's a women's holistic psychiatrist. And she has a new book, which I just got the other day. I'm excited. Her new book is Own Yourself. So she is really talking about, we're in the middle of a huge epidemic where everyone, especially women, more than men, are prescribed all sorts of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And those are causing huge side effects. And, and if looking at this from a functional approach, she put down her prescription pad over 10 years ago. She had a thriving business or a thriving practice where she was doling out medication and really put it down and really has not prescribed one medication. And this is for ADHD, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, and really looking at this through all the stuff we've talked about today, looking at it through gut health, through food sensitivities, through mind body, looking at your mental emotional side of things. So she is just a pioneer. She is freaking awesome. And her new book, she talks about, we are the only species on the planet who can cry. So why do we want to numb out our feelings with pharmaceuticals or shopping, food, addiction, whatever it is? So to be able, the only way out is through. And so to be able to, if there's trauma and things like that, to be able to dig into that. And I thought that was interesting. We're the only species that can cry. So why are we not letting that shit out?
Right. Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
I know.
What's your favorite documentary at the moment?
Yeah. So, and these are all the questions I love asking my guests. So I thought we'd turn it around on me. So yeah, my favorite documentary is Secret Ingredients. This is by Jeffrey Smith. And so my friend and colleague, Kathleen DiChiera was on this podcast. So her story of her family, they had like 27 chronic diseases between the 5 of them. And really the foundation of it was when they took out the GMO foods and went organic and they recovered. So, and they talk about there's a woman who struggled with three miscarriages. And so they talked about the fertility industry, how in 1985, there was like 1985, there was 44 fertility clinics. In 2015, there's 440. So, it's what's changed. The food industry has taken over. We've outsourced our food to them. And, infertility is on the rise and chronic disease is on the rise, and it's being managed with with big pharma and big dairy and big wheat. Big wheat's a thing, but yeah, big wheat. Yeah. Those sort of companies. And it's not, it's not doing us any favors, but that documentary Secret Ingredients is like so powerful. She is just a pioneer and she is amazing.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Favorite website? That's got to be hard.
Oh yeah. I took this kind of like for like my personal website. So it's not really, well, I guess I like every Sunday, I like reading the New York Times. It's my thing. I will go right to the New York Times book list because I have my book issues where I'm obsessed, and we'll always see what's on the bestseller and usually reading a whole whack of stuff. And so right now I'm reading Secrets We Kept, and that's from Reese Witherspoon's, her book club, Hello Sunshine. So she's recommended that. It's really cool, like Russian spies. I love like historical fiction, and also read during the summer City of Girls with Elizabeth Gilbert, which she is amazing as well. So yeah, I like reading about food. I like reading about all the stuff actually that I'm like talking about on the podcast. So it's like all the wellness things. I like all that stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. You just get, and I think because it's a growing field, right? And we're learning more and more and more. So it's like we always have to be kind of like re-educating ourselves. The information that's coming out now is amazing compared to 5-10 years ago and what we know. And I can only imagine it's going to get more interesting and more mainstream.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what's your favorite app? I know TikTok is your favorite app. I've seen you on there. I'm just joking. I've not seen Sarah on TikTok.
I do have an account, and Monica's been like flagging me on there, but I haven't figured out how to do anything yet. Yeah, my like favorite guy to follow is Gary Vaynerchuk. I love that guy. He's like so amazing. But my favorite app is actually, Monica told me about this one, is the 5-minute journal. So I use it every morning, doing my 3 things that you're grateful for and what's going to be the 3 things that make today great. I usually always do the same things. It'll be great today when I have a walk, when I meditate, and when now it's the summer, when I eat my lunch outside. So very simple things, but yeah, I do that after I meditate. But yeah, the 5-minute journal, I love that app.
Yeah, it's the 5-minute journal. I'm still old school. I still use the paper and pen, but that was a game changer for me. So your success story, what comes to mind, the very first one, because I'm sure you have a few.
I think just sharing the one about, so someone came to us and she kind of joked that she'd be a great case study. And so she had low AMH, she had multiple failed IUIs and IVFs. And so she came to us and we found that she actually had undiagnosed celiac disease. She had like multiple gut infections. There was like nine of them, and high stress. But she was like on it. We gave her the protocol and the diet and lifestyle strategies, and really within 4 months she got pregnant naturally. And so it was really cool to see, because talking about the case study, that's a major case study. So yeah, it's just to be able to help support someone like that and to be able to make those changes is really quite gratifying for sure.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I think, as you would find as well, most of the people we're seeing, it has nothing to do with their ovaries or their uterus. It's somewhere else.
Go figure.
Right.
Yeah. There's a 5%, 5% of people that have a structural issue, but the majority of us can get pregnant naturally.
Well, this was really fun. Thank you so much for letting me do this to you.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. It was awesome. So I guess if people want to find out more, definitely you can go back and check out my podcast episode. So Functional Medicine 101, we dig into like exactly what we do in our program to help people that are struggling, obviously, with infertility. Yeah, before you, if you want to chat to me, I would listen to our approach more, or if this explanation helped you, then feel free to jump on. But I guess if you're moving to that IVF side of things, and to do it together in tandem can be challenging. So it's like, if the functional approach is yours and you feel that's where you want to go, then we'd love to support you. And thanks so much, Monica, for switching the tables here and asking me the questions and stuff. I just kind of want to have people, I just feel like I try to give a little bit of my personality when I'm interviewing people, but usually it's about the guests. I wanted to have people hear my, and a lot of this is like, to be honest, I would rather coach you. I would rather listen to you talk about your stuff. I'm not like, I talk to my husband about a lot of things, but I'm not a huge talker about myself typically. I would rather help. That's why I like to coach, because the coaching is literally, I'm asking questions and my clients are doing all the talking, and I'm supporting them and figuring out and guiding them along the way, and hopefully giving them some nuggets of something along, to help them. Yeah, that's with the talking piece of it. I have to force myself to, like, I enjoy it now, but definitely it's not something that came naturally to me, but I prefer listening to you and your story. Yeah.
I would say for your podcast, as a top tip for your listeners, is listen to every single one, even if you don't think that you can relate to it. I know for me, when I was listening to any and every podcast, there'd be all these little aha moments that someone would link something else to, and you could really find some missing pieces. And then I would say, come listen to us over on the infertile diagnosis to get to know Sarah more, because you do let loose on that podcast.
I do. Yes. Monica and I are doing the infertile diagnosis. Yeah. I typically don't swear on my podcast, but over on Monica's podcast, I love to swear. So we just, we let it loose, and kind of a little more real. This podcast, I really want to be, I guess, not to say that Monica's is very educational as well. She's talking all about a functional approach, but this side of things, I somehow don't feel it's appropriate to swear on all of them. Although maybe I should start letting the F-bombs go, because in real life, that's what I do. But
right. Well, no, I think they're both good. They complement each other, right? Like yours is, you get some amazing guests on and amazing knowledge. And then, ours, we're talking about these things, or on the infertile diagnosis we are, but it's not I wouldn't say it's over educational.
It is to have the aha though, and go, oh, damn, that was me. Yeah. Like, shit, I have that issue. Or, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? And then, the Maya Angelou, you know better, you do better. And then it's kind of, you can't look back.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Monica.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll speak soon.
Hey there, Sarah Clark here. So are you struggling to have your baby? First of all, please know that my heart goes out to you. I support couples worldwide who are struggling with infertility to conceive and have healthy babies. Women like Rita, who gave birth to her beautiful daughter after following my fertility coaching system. Or Danielle, who after 2 failed IUIs was able to get pregnant after a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery call with me. So here's how you get my help for free. So I offer a free Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery call. And on that call, I'll create a plan with you that is going to help you fast track your success. So this call is not for everyone. And I'm really picky about who I get to speak with. And I have a strict but totally reasonable criteria that needs to be met in order for us to move forward. So here's who I can help. So first of all, you need to be able to explore your infertility diagnosis in a new light. So this offers for people who are open-minded, they're coachable, and if you can do that and want to double or triple your chances at the fertility clinic or get pregnant, awesome. So let's get on the phone and chat. Also, you must be an action taker. So someone who's committed to seeing results, you're able to follow directions. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do anything bizarre. But if you're one of those people who like to consume a ton of information, but don't like to spend time implementing and seeing results, then the call's not really for you. So I only want to spend time with people who are genuinely committed to their own success. So just click on the link in the show notes and apply, or go to fabfertile.com and click on the free consult. So it's a really short application that just tells me about your health, how long you've been trying to conceive, and how soon you'd like to be pregnant. So seriously, this is going to be the best time you've ever spent on your fertility. Looking forward to chatting. Talk soon. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.